Welcome to the all-new S2 Everything Self-Defense and Beyond series, where we talk about everything from martial arts, self-defense training, firearms training, and beyond. This is episode 001, entitled Behind Enemy Lines. I'm excited to launch this new series, mostly for a couple different reasons. Number one, I think it's really important for anybody who's involved or interested in martial arts and self-defense and firearms training to continually expand our thought process and certainly share our experiences and have these kinds of discussions, hoping to compel others to have that same train of thought and help each other expand our horizons and culminate different discussions. I think that's a really important part. After all, you and I have taken on the responsibility of being a force multiplier in our communities, in our societies, in our families. And we can't just do that just by being a good shooter or a good fighter, but we also have to be great thinkers. And that requires exercising the mind just as much as exercising the body. And so I think that these types of discussions are going to be really important. Which brings me to my second reason why I'm really excited about this, which is I don't think that there's enough discussions. I don't think there's enough conversation in a public forum that are designed to create other discussions, that are designed to culminate further thought. Now, we have some great people in our industry, in our communities. Some of these guys come from very high-speed, low-drag backgrounds like special operations and SWAT teams and these kinds of things, and we have to absorb as much as we can from them. But for the average everyday person, the average everyday citizen defender, we don't live that lifestyle. We're not kicking in doors. We don't have explosions going on all around us. We're not gunfighters necessarily, right? And so we might see things a little bit differently. Plus, I think some of the things that are shared come from a point of authority, in the sense that, you know, I'm a SEAL Team 20 Delta Force Recon guy, and because I said so, it's right. And I think that's the wrong approach in how we go about business here. I think that the better way to go about it is to have candid, raw discussions, just like we want to do in this particular series, and have people jump into the conversations and have great questions and answers, and just hoping that we can all make each other better, right? My effort is to make this series as raw and as candid as possible. No high-speed editing, no great B-roll, none of that stuff. I want this to be just like if you and I were having a discussion over coffee somewhere. So it's going to be extremely raw and kind of straight to the point. I'd love to have you guys as a part of that discussion. Please feel free to like, share, subscribe, comment as we move along, and turn on the notification bell. These episodes should be going up every Monday, schedule permitting. I do travel quite a bit, but for the most part, they'll be going up every single Monday, and hopefully you guys can catch us then. That being said, let's get into episode 001. Today's entry is entitled Behind Enemy Lines, which I'm using as a metaphor to describe the quest of going into the unknown, knowing full well that we potentially can face some severe challenges, be very uncomfortable in doing it anyways, okay? And I think that this was really inspired by something that happened a couple weeks ago that I'd love to share this story with you guys. I think everybody here is going to enjoy this. So we'll get into the story, and then let's extract some of the lessons that we can learn from it, and we'll go from there. So a couple of weeks ago, I was at the gym getting one of my evening workouts on, and I was working on one of those tricep pull-down machines. On the machine next to me was this gal, African-American lady, probably about 50 years old, mildly out of shape, and she was in a wheelchair. And if you know anybody who's in a wheelchair, a lot of times if they go into places like a martial arts academy or a fitness facility, they might feel a bit out of place or awkward, let's just call it. And a lot of that comes from the way people treat them, not necessarily in a bad way, but kind of like they're fragile, right? And I want to make everybody feel welcome wherever I'm at. It's one of the lessons that I learned throughout life and was kind of instilled on me through my dad, for the most part, was that make everybody feel welcome and have as many positive interactions as you possibly can. And so I kind of felt that awkward tension for her while she was working on the machine next to me. So I decided to kind of break the ice and just have some small talk. And so I cracked a couple dad jokes, and that opened an opportunity to have some just basic, superficial kind of conversation. Who do you think's going to the Super Bowl? What do you think about the weather? That kind of stuff. Somewhere in there, she had asked me what I do for a living. Now, I don't want to go into the complexities of S2 strategic defense and what all we're involved in. So I gave her an answer that almost everybody understands. And I said, I'm a self-defense instructor. And she's like, oh, that's cool. And so she went back to her set, and I went back to my set, and everything was fine. And about 30 seconds later, she turns around and says, "Hey, Nick, you said you're a self-defense instructor, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And she says, "Do you think you could teach me some self-defense?" And I said, "Well, I could pretty much teach anybody who wants to learn. Why, you want to learn something tonight?" And she's like, "Yeah, absolutely." And I said, "Okay, well, grab your gear." So she packed up her stuff and I grabbed my stuff and we head off into, one of those workout rooms, the wood floors and the mirrors everywhere, and where they hold like the yoga classes and the fitness classes and that kind of stuff. So we're in this room and I reached in my gym bag, which always has training gear in it, focus mitts, training knives, training sticks, that kind of stuff. And I pulled out a training knife and I handed it to her. And she looked at me like I was nuts. She's like, "What am I supposed to do with this, Nick?" And I said, "Listen, here's the deal. You have some limitations that create a disparity between the physical capabilities of an attacker and then yourself. And the best way to equalize that disparity is by usage of a weapon." And she looks at me, kind of goes, "Yeah, I think you're right." And so we spent about the next 15, 20 minutes working on, how to deploy the knife, how to conceal the knife, some basic cutting angles, how to mitigate a little bit of distance. Some things that I've picked up along the way. This isn't my first time working with anybody, with some physical limitations. And so, I got her moving with that stuff. And so, at the end of that 20 minutes or so, I asked her if there was any questions or if she's, catching on. And I got to be honest with you, it was awesome to watch her work. Very in tune, very responsive, just a sponge. Could do everything that I'm asking her to do in an instant, right? Just 1 or 2 reps and then she had it. And it was awesome to work with her. So at the end of it, she goes, "Can you teach me a little bit more?" And I said, "Tonight?" And she goes, "Yeah." And I said, "Look, I'll give you another 10 or 15 minutes. I want you to take what we're doing and I want you to practice it between now and the next time we get together. It's important that you don't go into information overload, that you're actually working this information. Right now it's easy because it's fresh and I'm here making these corrections, but I actually want you to spend a little bit of time doing it." And so she agreed. Following that, I was kind of having like some small conversation with her just to kind of feel out if she had any questions or otherwise. And as we were doing that, I was just kind of taking some mats off the wall, like those yoga mat kind of things, and throwing them down the floor. And she never even realized what I was doing there. And I said, "Hey, do you trust me?" And she said, "Yeah, so far so good." So I leaned over and I picked her up out of the chair and I dumped her ass right onto the mats. And you should have seen the look on her face. Just, I don't know if she was confused or perplexed or mad, probably a part nauseous, all of that. And so, just as I was about to explain what I just did, 2 of the staff members come running into the room and they're like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" Blah, blah, blah. And, somebody probably saw and complained or said something. And so they came blitzing into the room. And I'm like, "Guys, I'm teaching her how to protect herself. She's in a wheelchair. What do you want me to do? Teach her some kind of a spinning back heel hook kick? It's not going to work." And so she kind of chuckled from my response to them. And she goes, "We are fine, thank you. He is teaching me how to protect myself, but we're fine. I appreciate your concern." And so they kind of awkwardly looked at me and they're like, "Oh, okay," and kind of walked off. Kind of comical, I guess. So anyways, we spent the next 10 or 15 minutes and I was teaching her how to run the knife from being on the ground. Now, before you guys think that I'm an a-hole for dropping her on the mats, I want you to understand something. If you're a bad person, if you're an attacker, and you're trying to get something and assault somebody who's in a wheelchair, what's the best way for you to be successful in your attack? Drop her ass out of the chair, right? And so what do you think the bad guys are going to do? So I want to be realistic with how we approach training with her. And so it wasn't because I was trying to be mean or, pick on her or any of that stuff. It was basically because I wanted to be realistic with her. And so anyways, we're working on the ground and she's learning quickly. It was really interesting to see how fast she picked up being flat on her back or on her hip and that kind of stuff. And probably better than some of the people that I've taught in jiu-jitsu, honestly. And so she got it. And at the end of it, I picked her up, put her back in the chair, straightened her all out. Everything was fun. And so she turns to me and she says, "Nick, that was probably one of the most realistic things I've ever learned in my life." And I said, "Great." And she said, "Well, can you teach me again?" And I said, "I'll tell you what, anytime I'm here and you're here, I'd be happy to put some time in with you, no problems. But I want you to go between lessons and actually practice what you can and really work on it and make it your own thing, okay?" So she agreed to that. And she also said that a couple years ago, she had tried taking some lessons from a different martial arts instructor who did a self-defense seminar. And they were trying to teach her how to do some punches and stop and back away and, attract attention and that kind of stuff. And she comically says, listen, she goes, I'm a 50-some-odd-year-old black woman in a wheelchair. Nobody's coming to help me. And I kind of chuckled about it, and, I let it kind of go, but I understood where she's coming from. She's taking on the responsibility of her own safety, which I commended her for. And so that's kind of the story, right? And I thought it was kind of a cool experience to spend that, opportunity with her, especially, she hadn't known me for more than 10 seconds at the time, for her to take that risk and then never complain about it, never play the victim card or any of that stuff. So now you guys have the story, okay? So let's start talking a little bit about the lessons that we can extract from that story. So the first lesson that I want to extract from the story and discuss is in specific to my instructor brethren, meaning my martial arts instructors, my self-defense instructors, my firearms folks. Guys, please stop teaching bullshit. It's just that simple. Now I get it. Look, I've owned multiple martial arts academies. I've taught seminars around the globe. There's always this desire to want to teach our brand, our blend, our system, our art. I get it, okay? But I think one of the best things that you could do is teach to the end user. If you're using a curriculum or a bullet point kind of a thing, that's a guideline. That's how you get things started, okay? And just kind of, bullet point kind of a thing. You don't stick to that. You stick to what the end user is asking for and the direction that teaching experience and that learning experience is taking you. And so you have to come away from just the black and white A, B, C, D, E kind of a thing, and you also have to get away from wanting to teach your brand. I think one of the things that helped compel my career the most was the simple fact that I never really stuck to any curriculum. I always cared more about the end user more than I cared about what I wanted to teach. It's not my show. It's about the students. They're asking me a question, and sometimes they're not verbally asking. They're asking through their behavior, or they're asking through their attendance, whatever. And it's our job as instructors to be able to read that, have little systems in place that we can get some feedback from them, and make sure that we stick to what their needs more than our desires, okay? Stick to their needs more than your own desire. Take yourself out of the equation, okay? They're paying you time, they're paying you respect, they're paying you money to teach them something, hoping to answer a question that they have. Answer the question that they have, all right? So that's the first lesson. I think that's really important, because had my friend here from the gym, based her entire self-defense experience off of the one person that she went to go see before, then she would have never taken the accountability of learning again, right? And so kudos to her for looking past that bad experience and giving me an opportunity to try and teach her something that's of some value. The second lesson, I guess the first lesson for everyone else, is that I think it's important to constantly be honest with ourselves and do an assessment, okay? What are our vulnerabilities? Where are we good? Where are we not good? Where are we exposed? Where are we not exposed? And you have to think about everything in your lifestyle, right? At home, your workplace, in transit, what your skills are, what your skills are not. Constantly test those things and understand what you're good at and what you're not good at, exposing the vulnerabilities. Now, I understand why people tend to shy away from this. Sometimes it can be really uncomfortable, right? It can be really unnerving to think about the things that we're not good at. But let that be your motivation for continual improvement. Don't let that be the, white elephant in the room kind of a thing where we're just trying to stay away from it. Stare that SOB straight in the face and solve that problem, okay? Because you just never know. And so I think it's important that we're constantly addressing what we're good at and what we're not good at. Lesson number 2, I think, is the whole aspect of accountability. We have to be our own first responders. We have to be our own citizen defenders. We have to be our own first line of defense, at least in the self-defense and martial arts world, right? We're just talking about that. And that means we have to continually grow and learn. We constantly have to research. We have to test and challenge ourselves no matter what, okay? can't tell you how important that's been for me to continually get humbled by people and by experiences and be like, God, I thought I knew something here, but apparently I don't. And then that, gives me a little bit of a taste on what I should be spending some time training on. And that's always important, right? It truly is for our own good. And guys, if you're no good for yourself, you're not going to be good for anybody else. Keep that in mind too. You want to be able to defend your family, first learn how to defend yourself. You want to learn how to defend your community, first learn how to defend yourself. You want to learn how to defend your home, first learn how to defend yourself. You take care of yourself, you protect yourself, and the beauty of it is now you can go ahead and start trying to take care of somebody else. If you can't even do that for yourself, then you're no good to anybody else, okay? So keep that in mind. And I think the third lesson that I want to talk to is finding the right guidance and the right mentoring, I should say. Good mentors are valuable in all aspects of life, whether you're talking about, relationships, whether you're talking about business, whether you're talking about education, whether you're talking about self-defense, whether you're talking about martial art. Having a good mentor is important. And you know what makes a good mentor? One of the qualities of a good mentor is that they truly put your needs as their first priority. We talked about this just a second ago. A good mentor thinks about you before they think about themselves, okay? And if you can find a mentor that does that, an instructor that does that for you, then that's somebody you can trust. And that's a process that you can trust. And I'm not saying you can't question it along the way, you can't ask, why we're doing this or what are we doing this for, or any of those types of things. I'm saying that if they have a process to get you from A to B, and you've been open and honest with yourself and open and honest with them about what that particular process is or what the end goal is, if they keep that in mind, you have to be able to trust that process. And that starts with trusting that mentor. So if you guys are in that mentorship role, think about this, because this goes both ways. If you're in a student role or in a mentor role, that trust is important. And that trust is built on honesty between each other, right? And I think the last thing that I want to point out is inventory changes. When I say inventory, I mean your body's going to change, your abilities are going to change, your mindset's going to change, your lifestyle's going to change, your environment's going to change. Inventory changes all the time, and we have to adapt with that. If you, let's just for a second say that you're a married female, right, and you have a husband and a family and that kind of stuff, and you're relying on that person to take care of your home defense kind of stuff, right? Take care of your safety and provide safety at home. What happens when that person's not there, whether you got divorced or they're at work or whatever, but suddenly you're single, you're an individual in that home, right? The environment changed, right? The circumstances changed. And so you have to keep that in mind. And so how do you plug that gap? That's an important question. How do you plug that gap? And so if you think about it in these particular ways, that inventory constantly changes, then you'll look at your workplace, you'll look at your environment, you look at the people that are around you, you look at your the way you go to work or the way you go to the store or the way you come home or whatever, and you start identifying things that maybe I could do this a little bit better, or this is something that I'm just doing wrong, or hey, I'm doing this one spot on, right? So it's all about exploring and doing constant assessment, right, of your environment, of yourself, and all of those things. All these things are better for you, for the end user. You are your own mentor, you are your own student. So what's better for you, right? These are a few things that I think that from the story that we can extract and really think about for ourselves. I think it's important. And I want you to keep something in mind. If my friend had not been honest with herself, she would have never talked to me about any of this stuff, right? I wouldn't have had an opportunity to teach her a little bit of weapons work. I wouldn't have had an opportunity to teach her, the one place that probably she'd end up in the case of an assault, which is on the ground. And she understood that she has to go behind enemy lines. We took her out of her comfort zone. She knew she was going to face challenges and adversities in the content that I was going to teach her, right? And so, and she stuck with it. She didn't complain. She didn't play the victim card. She didn't do any of those things. She took full account of what her vulnerabilities are and said, I'd have a problem or some kind of a limitation. I have to be able to solve that problem. And so she chose, an opportunity with me to do so. And you gotta keep in mind, she doesn't know me for more than, 10 minutes tops. I'm 6'2", I'm 205 pounds. She probably doesn't know how to spell my name at this point. And she still decided to put a little bit of trust in me. And then once we got going, she started trusting the process. So all these things kind of tie in together, right? But I think that she truly went behind enemy lines. I think she truly went into some place that was unknown for her, unexperienced, and decided to expose some vulnerabilities, and then hopefully we could find some solutions for those vulnerabilities, okay? And that's really the reason why I named this episode Behind Enemy Lines, because I think that she's a great example of somebody who took the responsibility of being there, bettering herself through some uncomfortable experiences. Okay, so I'll leave you guys at that. Next week, we're going to be doing some deep discussions about a term that's kind of generically used, and that is situational awareness. And that is used everywhere, and nobody really does a good job of explaining it. So next week, we're going to do a deep dive into that, and I'm going to give you guys some stuff that I use for myself for situational awareness I think will help you out big time, that you can apply right away. And it's got nothing to do with any high speed, low drag, knives, guns, any of that stuff. It's just in the way you think and the way you see the world. But I guarantee you that these are going to be some good lessons for everybody to learn. So hopefully you guys will get a chance to tune in for that, some nitty gritty stuff. So, I really appreciate you guys taking the time and being part of this discussion. I'd love to hear from you in your comment, in the comment section. When have you gone behind enemy lines to learn something, to experience something, to better yourselves? And I don't care. It doesn't have to be self-defense related. It doesn't have to be firearms related. It doesn't have to be martial arts related. Just an experience that you guys have had in your own lives where you ventured into some unknown territory and came out better. I'd love to hear about that, okay? And if you guys are interested in more content from us, we are uploading now a few days out of the week, right? So these sessions will be up every Monday. Wednesdays, we do our solo martial arts Jeet Kune Do and Kali sessions. And then Fridays, we do our S2 Dry Fire Friday. So we talk about firearms training and dry fire drills every Friday. So at least 3 days a week. And then we're also working on some upcoming gear review and that kind of stuff. So make sure you guys hit the like, share, subscribe, turn on the notification bell. And I certainly hope that you guys are going to be a part of this discussion. All right, guys, be safe, be well, and I will see you guys on the next one.